Are you a BMW enthusiast?
No,
Okay, well, are you looking to go electric?
absolutely not.
Okay, well, hypothetically, if you were a BMW fan and you wanted an EV, would you consider the 2024 i5 eDrive 40?
Maybe.
Very good. Well, we're moving in the right direction, and we've got one of those cars right here, a 2024 BMW i5 eDrive 40, one of several i5 models they offer. There's also the i5 xDrive 40, which has all-wheel drive, and there's an i5 M60, a performance-tuned version of this, which is essentially an all-electric version of the Bavarian automaker's famous 5 Series sedan. So lots of choice right there. The M version, of course, has way more horsepower and torque than this model, but we'll get to some of those numbers here in just a minute. Up front, I want to point one thing out, very significant: the grille. It's a normal size. Unlike on other BMWs, the i7 comes to mind, they have gigantic grilles that are completely out of place. This actually fits the front end of the vehicle quite nicely, so 2 thumbs way up from me for a little bit more tasteful design on the i5 here. Very sculptured hood, nice indentation here, adds a bit of visual interest to what is otherwise a very large swing panel, so they're keeping things interesting despite having that smaller grille. LED headlamps up front, of course, but moving along to the side of this vehicle, we have a battery pack that's roughly 81 kilowatt hours, and it provides up to 295 miles of range with the stock 19-inch wheels. However, this particular example is rolling on the much larger 21s. Those reduce the EPA estimated range to just about 270 miles. So you are giving up a little bit of distance for some vanity, for a little bit of extra style. Is it worth it? Well, that's totally up to you. Speaking of the battery pack, it's about 81 kilowatt hours. It will level 2 AC charge at up to 11 kilowatts, though the DC fast charging is very impressive as well, up to 205 kilowatts, so pretty good performance there. Moving rearward, again, very cleanly styled flanks on this BMW. We have some black trim around the side glass for sort of a sporty look, and we've got an embossed 5 over here on the Hofmeister kink area, just to remind you of what sort of vehicle you are driving. While we're right here as well, I want to point out this. Yes, it's the exterior door handle, and it's interesting because unlike a lot of other EVs, this is just sort of a traditional flipper style door handle, much like you would get on a car from the 1990s. Now, that is not a knock against BMW. I actually like this solution because it's flush, better aerodynamics. It's also very easy to use, and unlike some motorized door handles, there's less to break here. So long-term, probably a better solution. And moving rearward again, back fender here is where you put juice into the battery pack. Not my favorite location for a charging port, but you can't win every battle. As you can see here, we do have a CCS port. BMW will eventually transition to the North American charging standard, but for now, CCS is how you charge this i5 right here, so be aware of that. And again, pretty good charging performance with this battery pack. At the rear of the car, much like the front of the i5 eDrive 40 here, very cleanly styled. Again, a nice improvement from some other BMWs that are out there right now. Though there's one curious thing, and that's down here, sort of in the bumper, they've still got, I don't know, vestigial cutouts for the exhaust system. And last I checked, there are no tailpipe emissions from an EV. So kind of curious they didn't change that for the electric model, but you know, it is what it is. Let's hop inside now. Alrighty, this cabin is very nice. No major surprises if you've ever been in a modern BMW, but let's take a very quick tour of what's going on in here. I've put my foot on the brake and hit the start button down here on the center console, so everything has fired up. This is your gear selector, of course, this little paddle that you can use like that. Your volume control is there. You have this crystalline dial, which you can use to interact with the infotainment system, though, very significantly, the car also has a touchscreen, so you've got different ways of interacting with the BMW 8.5 operating system here, which is just very responsive. And there's a lot going on here. I've said this with other BMW multimedia arrays. There's a learning curve to them, but once you sit down and sort of figure out how things work, you will appreciate the intuitiveness and of course the responsiveness. As for the rest of the cabin, premium materials as you would expect. We've got some crystalline sort of faceted trim here on the dashboard, and the door panels, that brings to mind the larger i7. I'm mixed on that, but I can see that, and I can appreciate really that BMW is trying to do something just a little bit different than the norm. Carbon fiber on the dashboard and onto the doors as well. It gives a really technical look, a high gloss finish to it as well, and it feels super solid. So very nice there. Additionally, we got the steering wheel, very meaty grip, just like you would expect for a car from BMW that really focuses on driving dynamics. Over here, one other thing they've borrowed from the i7 are the air vent controls. We have sort of a digital switch to turn the airflow on and off, or you have a couple options in between on and off, so you can really throttle the airflow as you want. But then they've got these little drums down here. That's kind of how you direct where the air is flowing, and it's an interesting solution, but it's really fiddly and probably quite difficult to adjust while you're driving. So I think personally, I would much prefer just a conventional air vent, but you know, you'll get used to that probably. In any event, let's take this thing for a spin and talk about performance. So the i5 eDrive 40 here has 335 horsepower and a nominal 295 pounds of twist. However, if you engage either the boost or launch control modes, it does increase the twist to 317 pound-feet, which is enough to get you from 0 to 60 in an entirely quick 5.7 seconds, which should be perfectly fine for everyday driving. This car has no trouble accelerating. However, of course, if you want more than that, BMW will happily sell you an i5 xDrive 40, which has 389 horses and 435 pound-feet of torque, and will get you from 0 to 60 in just 5.2 seconds, a full second quicker than the model I'm driving right now. However, there's even more. Like I alluded to earlier, the M60 variant, the M Performance tuned model, has 593 horses, 586 pounds of twist, and it will go from 0 to 60 in just 3.7 seconds. Now, of course, the trade-off for all of this extra performance is less range. The xDrive 40 variant will do between 248 miles and 266 miles on a full charge, while the M60 version, it's only going to go about 240 to 256, so budget accordingly. Now, of course, since this is a modern BMW, a top-shelf luxury version, you get plenty of amenities. We've got lane keeping assist, cross traffic alert, there's wireless charging for your phone, we have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay compatibility. I neglected to mention that a few minutes earlier when I was talking about the infotainment system, and of course there's a Harman Kardon premium sound system, so you can rock out to your favorite tunes or elevator music or whatever you like to listen to. Despite rolling on those very large and undoubtedly extremely heavy 21-inch wheels, the ride quality of the i5 here is phenomenal. It does an excellent job filtering out surface imperfections, whether they're frost heaves or expansion joints, potholes, whatever. It kind of just glides along the road very smoothly and very quietly, which is what you would expect from a luxury vehicle. As for the steering, that meaty wheel here makes it easy to drive, and it's very crisp on center and quite lively for a large car. It feels like we're turning at about the center of the vehicle, which really helps this thing feel more engaging than you might expect for an EV, because EVs are, as you know, significantly heavier than their combustion-powered counterparts. Now, I'm sure the gasoline-burning 5 Series is a bit more entertaining to drive than the i5 here, but I'll tell you, as EVs go, this is pretty impressive. It really is. So how much does all of this Bavarian excellence cost? Well, the base i5 eDrive 40 starts at about $68,000, including $995 in destination fees, though the example I'm piloting right now is more expensive than that, though maybe not as much as you might expect. As it sits, this one goes for just shy of $77,000 with delivery. And yes, that's a lot of money, but I mean, you can practically spend that much on a Kia these days, so this BMW's price tag really isn't all that outrageous. Hey, if you're looking for another luxury EV with a bit more practicality than this BMW, consider the Acura ZDX Type S, which conveniently I just reviewed. Click right over here to check that feature out next.